you believe that a dog who was abused, who was so afraid of humans that he didn't dare look anyone in the eye, could become a hero? Imagine a girl in a wheelchair, a person who had lost all hope after a fateful accident. And then, an abandoned stray dog appeared in her life. Two broken souls, two seemingly lost destinies, suddenly found each other, and together wrote an unexpected story. But their journey is not easy. When the dog's dark past is exposed, when all the challenges seem insurmountable, will faith and friendship be enough to overcome it all? Before we continue, please comment and tell us where in the world you are watching this video. And if you believe in touching stories, don't forget to subscribe now, because tomorrow there will be a special story for you. Aspen Valley is a small town nestled in the majestic Rocky Mountains, where pine forests stretch endlessly. Every early morning, golden rays of sunlight sparkle on the leaves, which are still wet with dew. A place that used to be Amelia Brooks's paradise. Amelia was once as free as the wind. Her feet used to stride on the trails through the forest, and she used to fly on the track with the speed of a wild wind. She was more than just an excellent athlete. She was a soul who lived for speed, freedom, and the struggle of youth. But then, in just a moment, that freedom was torn from her life. The accident came like a storm. It was not a loud collision or a chaotic scene. It was just a moment of terrifying silence as the car flipped on the slippery road in the autumn rain, as the streetlights blurred in her eyes, and as the world around her seemed to slow down. Then, darkness enveloped me. When Amelia opened her eyes, the first thing she felt was not pain, but emptiness. Her legs no longer belonged to her. From an aspiring athlete, Amelia became a person trapped in her own body. She could not run, could not jump, could not touch the wind like before. But worse than the physical loss was the mental loss. She stopped believing in herself. She stopped believing in life. She accepted that her life was nothing but gray walls of hopelessness. But then, fate arranged an unexpected encounter. That day, her mother pulled her out of bed, despite Amelia's weak resistance. "We're going to the animal rescue center. You can't keep burying yourself." Amelia was silent. She didn't care. The animals there were probably just like her, trapped, abandoned, and without hope of going on. But then, as she rolled into the camp, a pair of eyes caught her eye. A pair of eyes she couldn't look away from. In the corner of the cage, nestled in the shadows, was a golden retriever, its fur filthy and matted as if it had never been petted. But it wasn't its haggard appearance that stopped Amelia. It was its eyes. Cooper's gaze was unlike any she'd ever seen before. It wasn't fierce, it wasn't angry, it wasn't pleading. It was filled with a deep sadness, a pain that only those who had lost something important could understand. A staff member stepped forward, his voice hesitant. "Cooper is untrainable. He's been abused, and he doesn't trust people anymore." The words, instead of making Amelia flinch, made her feel a strange connection. An animal that no longer believed in the world. A human who no longer believed in himself. Maybe these two lost souls belong together. "Amelia, are you sure you can't take care of a dog that's so damaged?" Her mother was worried, but Amelia no longer hesitated. For the first time in months, she felt a ray of light creep into the dark corner of her heart. She slowly reached out to Cooper. The dog didn't move. It just watched silently, as if considering an important decision. Then, after a silence that seemed endless, Cooper lowered his head, taking a gentle step toward Amelia. You've followed this far. That proves you have a seed of compassion in your soul. Perhaps, somewhere out there are also wounded souls like Cooper. Some people once flew high, but were tied down by fate like Amelia. But the important thing is whether they found each other or not. And if you believe that every life, no matter how broken, deserves a second chance, please support this story by like the video. Because maybe just a small action of yours will help spread a big message. And like Amelia, ask yourself this question. Have you ever met a Cooper in your life? The first night Cooper came home, he huddled in the corner of his room, where the dim light from the nightlight illuminated his trembling features. Amelia had prepared a soft mattress, a bowl of clean water, and even a soft toy. But Cooper didn't touch anything. He just lay there, quiet as a shadow, his dark brown eyes wary. Amelia didn't try to touch him. She knew that feeling well. The feeling when the world around him seemed too scary to open up again. Because she had been there herself. Have you ever felt trapped in your pain? When no matter how many people were around you, you still felt alone? She didn't need anyone to tell her that trust couldn't be rushed. And so, that night, Amelia didn't force Cooper out of his comfort zone. She just quietly rolled him over, sat down, and stayed there. Just stayed there. The first few days passed slowly. Cooper was still frightened by loud noises. When Amelia picked up a glass, he flinched. When someone opened the door, he flinched. And when Amelia reached out her hand too quickly, she backed away, her eyes haunted. For the first time, she realized Cooper's pain was more than just fear. He had been hurt, deeply. But who had hurt him, and why? Those questions swirled around Amelia's head, but instead of searching for answers, she chose to give him time. She sat with him every day, telling him stories no one else knew, about how fast she used to run. The sound of the wind whistled past her ears as she raced toward the finish line, her breath pounding in her chest. About the moment she realized she had lost everything. About the eerie silence of the hospital, where only the cold hum of machines replaced the frantic beat of life she once knew. She didn't know if Cooper understood, but with each passing day, it seemed to be a little less frightening. With each passing day, it drew a little closer, until one evening. It was a quiet night. The moonlight spread silently across the floor like a silver river. Amelia was tired, leaning her head against the wheelchair, her eyes slowly drooping. Then suddenly, something touched her knee. She was startled. It was Cooper. He was no longer cowering in the shadows, no longer afraid or avoiding. He simply laid his head on her lap, eyes closed, as if this was where he belonged. At that moment, Amelia's heart felt like it was broken and then mended, because she understood that they were both looking for the same thing: trust. Have you ever had that moment when you realized that someone trusted you completely? It wasn't just a warm feeling. It was an awakening. The next morning, Cooper followed Amelia out into the yard for the first time. He was still a little hesitant, but this time he didn't back down. And when Amelia patted his thigh, she whispered, "Come here, little one." Cooper looked at her, then walked forward without hesitation. From that day on, everything changed. Every morning, Amelia and Cooper would greet the sunrise together on the porch. When she practiced in her wheelchair, Cooper would run beside her, as if to remind her that she wasn't alone on this journey. When she felt like she wasn't strong enough, she just looked into Cooper's sincere eyes and knew she couldn't give up. Do you know what makes a real connection? Not the words, not the grand actions. It's the little moments when someone chooses to stay, even when they could leave. And if you've made it this far, it means you're a person with a loving heart. Maybe you've loved someone for no reason. Maybe you've chosen to stay, even when things weren't easy. So, if you believe that love can heal even the most broken of souls, please like this video. Because one day, you might be the one to bring light to someone in the dark. And who knows? Maybe, somewhere out there, there is a Cooper waiting for you to find it. That afternoon, the sun was setting slowly behind the peaks of Aspen Valley, dyeing the sky a brilliant orange. Amelia and Cooper, as usual, walked together along the forest trail. No longer the scared dog hiding from his own shadow. Cooper now walked with more confidence, his golden fur shining in the afternoon sun. But then, something changed. In just a moment. Amelia felt Cooper suddenly stiffen. He stood still, breathing heavily, the hair on the back of his neck standing up. She followed his gaze and saw a man standing on the corner, his cold eyes glancing between them. Then suddenly, Cooper let out a panicked hiss. He didn't bark. He didn't growl like a ferocious dog, but instead lunged in front of Amelia, his body tensing like a warrior ready to protect his loved one. Amelia had never seen Cooper like this. She could see the fear in his eyes, but there was something else too. A determination not to let the man get near her. The man recognized Cooper too. He paused, but only for a moment, then quickly turned away. Cooper didn't move. He stood there, breathing heavily as if he had just faced a monster from his past. What had happened to him? That night, when Amelia returned home, the image of Cooper and the strange man still haunted her. She knew she had to find out the truth. She went back to the shelter where Cooper had been before she adopted him. The worker there looked at Amelia for a long moment as she asked about Cooper's past. Then he sighed, pulling an old file out of a drawer. And what Amelia read sent a chill down her spine. Cooper was no ordinary, abandoned dog. He had once belonged to an illegal dog fighting camp. There, dogs were forced to fight for the amusement of cruel people. They were beaten, starved, and turned into mindless fighting machines. But Cooper refused. He refused to attack other dogs. He refused to become a killer. And so, he was punished, starved, beaten. Finally, they decided that a dog that refused to fight was useless. So they threw him out on the street, abandoned as a loser. But is a dog that chooses compassion over violence a loser? Or is he the strongest fighter for daring to choose differently? Have you ever felt that way? What does it feel like when the world wants you to be someone else, but your heart won't let you? What does it feel like when you're judged and pushed aside just because you chose your path? If so, you'll understand Cooper's pain. When Amelia finished reading the file, she felt a lump in her throat. She looked down at her four-legged friend, now sleeping peacefully next to her chair. A dog who had been abused. A dog who had lost faith in humans. A dog who still chose to protect her with all his heart. And in that moment, she realized something. If Cooper could learn to trust humans again, then she could trust herself. The next day, Amelia took Cooper back down the road. She didn't know if they would ever see the man again. But this time, she wasn't afraid. And neither was Cooper. As they walked, the wind blew through Amelia's hair, through Cooper's golden fur, gently, peacefully, as if a new chapter was unfolding. You followed this story this far. That means you have a loving heart. Because not everyone takes the time to listen to a story about compassion. Not everyone understands that true strength lies not in violence, but in forgiveness and trust. And if you believe that every life deserves a second chance, please share this video. Because just one small act from you can help spread a big message. And who knows, maybe there are many more Coopers out there, waiting for someone to give them a chance to trust again. There are moments in everyone's life when they have to choose between continuing to live in the shadows or standing up despite all the doubts to prove that they are not victims of fate. For Amelia and Cooper, that moment has come. One autumn morning, Amelia received information about a competition for rescue dogs. It was more than just a competition. It was a chance for dogs who had been abandoned and abused to prove that they were not useless and that they deserved a place in this world. At that moment, a thought flashed through Amelia's mind. Cooper had to enter. But as soon as she said her intention, the objections immediately came back to her. A dog who had been abused like Cooper cannot compete. And what about you, Amelia? You can't run. How will you guide him? Those words weren't meant to hurt her, but they touched a deep fear inside her, a fear that she and Cooper would forever be forgotten, never able to push their limits. But there was one thing everyone didn't understand. Cooper had changed Amelia, and now it was her turn to believe in him. From that day on, Amelia and Cooper began training. Unlike the other contestants, who could run, who could guide their dogs through each challenge with strong steps, Amelia had to find her way. She spent hours in her wheelchair, adjusting every command, every look, every hand gesture, so that Cooper would understand that if he just listened to her, he would know what to do. For the first time, when faced with a high obstacle, Cooper hesitated. Amelia could see the fear in his eyes, the fear of a dog who had been beaten every time he made a mistake. She didn't push. She just put her hand on its head and said softly, "It's okay. I'm here." Cooper looked at her. Then it walked over. That day, Amelia realized something. They didn't have to be someone else. They just had to be themselves. No more fear. Then the day of the competition came. Hundreds of people showed up at the stadium. Curious glances and whispers filled the air as Amelia and Cooper entered the competition area. A girl in a wheelchair. A dog who had been considered a failure. No one thought they could do it. But Amelia didn't care. Because Cooper believed in her. And she believed in him. The challenges began. The first obstacle was a series of bars that the dogs had to jump over. Cooper took off like a bolt of lightning, his body as fluid as water, gliding over each obstacle without fail. Obstacle number 2, a wooden bridge that swayed. Cooper stepped onto it, balancing perfectly under Amelia's gentle guidance. Everything was going so well. But then, the final challenge, a wooden wall nearly 6 feet high. Cooper stopped. For the first time in the competition, he hesitated. The wall was too high, too far. And in his eyes, Amelia saw the old fear returning. Doubt, painful memories. He remembered being beaten for not jumping high enough. He remembered being rejected for not being good enough. And then Cooper turned to Amelia, not for orders, for faith. At that moment, Amelia no longer saw a wounded dog. She saw only a warrior. She leaned forward, gently touching Cooper's golden fur. "I know you can do it. Just believe in yourself." Cooper remained still. But something in his eyes changed. No more fear, no more doubt, only determination. And then, Cooper charged. The entire arena held its breath. His 4 feet left the ground, his body rising into the air, pushing past his limits. The moment seemed to last forever. Then, he landed on the other side. Silence. Then a second later, a roar of cheers. The entire arena rose to its feet, clapping and screaming. Cooper had done it. Amelia smiled, tears streaming down her cheeks. No one calls him a loser anymore, because today, he didn't just win the competition, he won himself. Do you know what makes a hero? It's not strength. It's not winning over others. It's winning over your fear. And if you've made it this far, it means you understand the value of faith, determination, and perseverance. Because not everyone can patiently listen to a story about the rebirth of a broken soul. What do you think about Cooper and Amelia's journey? Comment your thoughts, because who knows, your story might inspire someone out there. And who knows, maybe the next hero is you. After their resounding victory, Amelia and Cooper's story spread faster than anyone could have imagined. The media called them the unbeatable couple. Cooper was hailed as a miracle dog who overcame a painful past to rise up strong. Amelia was called the girl in the wheelchair who turned challenges into opportunities and turned pain into strength. But for Amelia, victory was not the shiny gold trophy on the shelf. It was not the praise from millions of strangers. True victory? It was the moment she realized she could do more. She began to think about others, people like her, children who never had the chance to run. Souls are damaged by being seen as different. Dogs like Cooper, once discarded, once considered worthless. And an idea flashed through her mind, an idea no one had ever thought of before. Why not connect those souls? Amelia spent all of her prize money on building a therapy farm, a place where disabled children could come to meet rescue dogs who had been hurt, not to train them, not to own them, but to heal both sides. On opening day, Amelia sat in her wheelchair at the farm's gates, Cooper sitting patiently beside her. One by one, the children filed in. A boy who couldn't speak, a girl who had never touched an animal in her life, a teenager with a spinal cord injury who believed his life was over, and the dogs, some shaken, some scarred, but all had one thing in common. They had once lost faith in the world, but the moment their eyes met, all barriers fell away. The first touches, the first smiles, the first moments when two broken souls found each other, and the magic began. Children learned to trust. Dogs learned to love. No force, no expectations, just patience, compassion, and the belief that everyone deserves a second chance. Do you believe in small miracles? Not miracles that change the world, but miracles that change a life. Years later, when Amelia was interviewed about her journey, she simply smiled and patted Cooper's head. He was older, but his eyes were as bright as ever. And she said, "True strength is not in the body. It's in faith and love." Because if a dog who is abandoned can stand up and become a hero, if a girl in a wheelchair can change her life, then so can you. You've made it this far. That means there's something special in your heart. Maybe you felt like you weren't good enough. Maybe you've doubted that you could do anything meaningful. But remember, anyone can create a miracle. If you believe, and if you believe that the world would be a better place with more love, please comment with your thoughts. Because sometimes, just one word from you can change a life. If you are still here, still listening to the final words of this story, it means you have an open heart, a soul full of love. And for that, we are truly grateful to you. Thank you for for taking the time to accompany us on this emotional journey. Thank you for listening, for feeling, for opening your heart to a story that is not just about a girl in a wheelchair or an abandoned dog, but about faith, compassion, and perseverance. Thank you for taking a few minutes out of your busy day to slow down, reflect, to remember that in this world, there are still many miracles that happen when people love each other enough to trust each other. What is the biggest lesson from this story? That true strength is not physical, but mental. Those wounds can be a source of strength if we dare to face them and move on. That love can not only change a life, it can change the world. And if this story touches your heart, if you believe that there are still Coopers out there who deserve a chance at love, please take a second to like this video. Because when you do, you not only help spread a story, but also help spread a message. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it, because who knows, you might be the one to light a fire in someone's heart. And before we go, we want to ask you one thing. How would you rate this story from 0 to 10? Leave your number in the comments. We want to know what you think. Finally, if you love inspiring stories like this, stay tuned for more videos, because we have many more stories that can make you laugh, cry, think, and most importantly, make you believe that there are still many miracles in this world. And maybe the next story will be the story that you cannot miss. Thank you for being here.